I didn't join the volunteer search team because I'm brave. I joined because it's hard to sleep in a town where people can disappear without making a sound. In places like ours, missing posters don't come down. They just bleach in the sun until the faces look like ghosts. Then somebody replaces them with a fresh printout, and the cycle starts again. A dog gets loose, a hiker takes a wrong turn, a kid storms out after an argument and doesn't come home. Everyone has a theory. Everyone has a story, and everyone knows the same ugly truth. The woods aren't empty. They're just quiet enough that you can pretend they are. The call went out on a Tuesday night right after dinner. I was standing at my sink, rinsing a plate I hadn't eaten from, when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Unknown numbers in our county usually mean one of three things: spam, school, or trouble. "This is Ben," I said. A woman's voice answered. Clipped and practiced, like Shed made the same call 100 times. Benjamin Harlow. I hadn't heard my full name spoken aloud in a while. It made my shoulders tighten. "Yes, this is Marcy Duvall with the Volunteer Search and Rescue Registry. We have an active missing person case. Are you still available to assist?" There was a pause behind her words, the kind that isn't silence so much as someone waiting for you to prove you're the kind of person you claim to be. "Who's missing?" I asked. "Jenna Cross, 16, last seen at approximately 4:40 p.m. near the North Ridge access off County Route 12. She did not return home. Sheriff's Department is requesting volunteers for First Light Grid." Jenna Cross. I pictured her immediately, even though I didn't know her well. Everybody knew the Cross family. They'd lived here forever. Jenna had worked weekends at the grocery store last summer, hair tied back, eyes down. Polite in that way. Kids are when they're trying not to draw attention in a small town that watches them grow up. "What should I bring?" I heard myself say. Marcy didn't sound relieved. She sounded like Shed expected it. "Sturdy boots, weather layers, water, headlamp if you have one. If you own a handheld GPS, bring it. Meet at the old fairgrounds pavilion at 5:30 a.m. Sign-in required. Safety briefing at 5:45. We deploy at 6. I should have asked why the fairgrounds. I should have asked why not the trailhead. I should have asked what was wrong with calling in state resources, dogs, helicopters, anything. Instead I said, "Okay." "Thank you, Ben," she replied, like she was logging a fact, not thanking a person. "And please don't go out there alone tonight." Her emphasis landed oddly on that last word. "Yeah," I said, "I won't." When she hung up, I stood staring at my own reflection in the dark kitchen window. For a moment I imagined the North Ridge, black and wind whistling, the trees packed tight and patient. I imagined a 16-year-old trying to be brave, trying to find her way back, trying to convince herself that every snapping twig was just a deer. I rinsed the plate again, even though it was already clean, and set it in the drying rack like that would make my hands stop shaking. I didn't sleep. Not really. I dozed in my recliner in chunks, waking every time the house made a sound. Water heater, pipes, the old wooden steps settling. Each time I opened my eyes, I expected to see my phone lit up with a message that she'd been found, cold and miserable, but alive, and we could all go back to the comfort of pretending nothing happened here. Instead, at 4:58 a.m., my alarm went off, and the world was still the same. The fairgrounds were a strip of damp grass and sagging structures that got used once a year for funnel cakes and 4-H competitions. In the foggy half-light, it looked like a place built for crowds that no longer existed. The pavilion sat at the center, metal roof, picnic tables, the kind of space where people celebrated under string lights, and then packed up and left. This morning, it was floodlit by portable work lamps, and the shadows were sharp. Cars lined the gravel lot, pickup trucks, an old minivan, a couple of SUVs that still had baby seats in the back. People stood in clusters, clutching travel mugs, faces drawn tight with worry and caffeine. You could feel it in the air. The thin line between hope and panic, stretching and fraying. A folding table was set up at the pavilion entrance with 2 clipboards, a box of pens, and a stack of bright orange vests. A woman in a red jacket, Marcy, I guessed. Checked names with a kind of calm that didn't come from peace so much as repetition. I wrote Ben Harlow on the sign-in sheet, and put my phone number beside it. Under experience, I hesitated, then wrote, "Local hikes." First search, Marcy glanced at my handwriting, then at my face. Her eyes were pale gray, and there were little lines at the corners like she'd done a lot of squinting into weather. "Thank you for coming," she said. This time it sounded real, then her voice dropped. Just enough that I knew it was meant only for me. "Ben, right? You understand this is volunteer. You can leave at any time." That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. I nodded. "Yeah." She slid an orange vest toward me. "Put that on. Stay with your assigned buddy. Don't break formation. And if you get turned around, you stop moving and you call. You don't try to catch up." The last part was said like she'd learned it the hard way. Behind her, taped to one of the pavilion's metal support poles. There were 2 different sheets of paper. One was normal, the kind of thing you'd see on any volunteer operation. Search safety guidelines in bold, hydration. Tick checks. Watch your footing. Keep eyes on your partner. The second sheet looked like it had been printed at home in a hurry and slapped up because someone couldn't stand keeping it in their pocket. The header wasn't bold. It wasn't official. It was just a line of plain text. "Read before deployment." Underneath were bullet points. I leaned in, expecting more safety advice. Maybe directions. Maybe emergency contact numbers. Instead, I read, 1. Do not search alone, ever. 2. If you hear your name called from outside your group, do not answer. 3. Do not follow footprints that begin on bare rock. 4. If you see a line of flagging tape you don't recognize, do not cross it. 5. If a radio transmission repeats 3 times, turn your volume down and move closer to your group. The words sat there like they didn't belong in daylight. For a second, I wondered if somebody had taped up a prank, something from a podcast. One of those creepy rules people trade online. But the paper was creased, as if it had been folded and unfolded too many times, and the tape was fresh. Marcy saw me looking. "That's not official," she said quickly, like she'd been waiting for someone to notice. "It's community advice. Ignore it if it makes you uncomfortable." But her jaw was tight. "Who wrote it?" I asked. She looked past me toward the pavilion's far end, where a deputy was speaking to a tall man with a backpack and a radio harness. "Someone who's been out there more than once," she said. Before I could ask anything else, a sheriff's cruiser rolled in, tires crunching on wet gravel. Its lights weren't on. But the presence of it still changed the mood. Conversations died down. People turned their bodies toward it like sunflowers toward the sun. Deputy Klein climbed out. I'd seen him around town, usually at the gas station, or the diner. The kind of young deputy who tried to look older than he was. He was wearing a brown jacket over his uniform, a knit cap pulled low. His eyes were red like he'd been awake all night. He stepped up onto the pavilion and raised a hand. "Morning, folks," he called. His voice carried, but it wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "First off, thank you for coming. Jenna Cross is missing. Her family is at home with a liaison. We have state SAR en route, but we can't wait. Every hour matters." A few people nodded like they were bracing themselves for a storm. "Here is what we know," Klein continued. Jenna was last seen near the North Ridge access. She had her phone. We did not get a ping after 5:05 p.m. We have not found her vehicle because we believe she was dropped off. That got a murmur going. A few heads turned, faces pinched. "Listen," Klein said, and the murmur died. "This is a grid search. Follow your team lead. Stay visible. Use your radios only when necessary. If you find anything, clothing, a phone, a shoe, anything, you do not touch it, you mark it and you call." He paused, eyes sweeping the crowd. His gaze snagged on that second paper taped to the pole, and for a split second his expression hardened. Then he looked away like he hadn't seen it. "Our team leads are Travis Mott and Lisa Hensley," Klein said, gesturing. "Travis is on the Ridge team. Lisa's taking Creek Bed and Lowland. You will be assigned based on your gear and comfort level. This is not a competition. Nobody goes off script, understood?" A chorus of yes and understood rose up, thin and uneven. Travis Mott stepped forward. He was mid-40s, maybe, with a weathered face and hands that looked like they belonged on a steering wheel. He wore an old search team jacket with patches on the shoulders, and a cap that had been rained on more than once. His voice was deeper than Klein's and steadier, but not because he was calm, because he was used to sounding calm. "All right," Travis said. "Ridge team, you're with me. We'll be working the access trail, then fanning out in pairs. Lolan with Lisa. If you have a medical issue, speak now." No one spoke. "Fine," he said. "Then here is your first real rule." The way he said the word rule made my stomach dip. "You get eyes on something that doesn't make sense," Travis continued. "You don't, check it out. You don't do the brave thing. You do the smart thing. You stop, you call, you wait." A man in a camouflage jacket snorted quietly, like he thought it was overkill. Travis stared at him until the man stopped. "Ben," Travis said suddenly, and I realized he was looking at my vest, at my name written in black marker. "You're on Ridge." I opened my mouth to ask why, then shut it. Ridge was where she'd been last seen. Ridge was where you'd go if you wanted to help. I told myself that was all it was. But as we started splitting into groups, as people adjusted straps and checked batteries and tested radios, I caught something that didn't fit. Somewhere out past the fairgrounds, beyond the dark silhouette of the tree line, there was a low hum. Not a truck engine, not wind. More like the distant vibration of something huge, hovering. I turned my head, trying to place it, but the sound faded the moment I focused on it. Like it didn't want to be noticed. Travis was handing out small rolls of flagging tape, neon orange. When he reached me, he didn't give me orange. He gave me a roll of pale blue. Our fingers brushed, and he didn't meet my eyes. "Don't lose that," he said, then quieter, like a confession. "And don't look up unless you have to." He moved on before I could ask what the hell that meant. I stared at the blue tape in my hand, then back at the paper on the pole with its neat little bullet points, especially the one about footprints on bare rock. In the growing daylight, with volunteers talking and radios crackling and coffee steaming in paper cups, it should have looked silly. It didn't. It looked like the kind of thing you write when you've seen something you can't unsee, and you're trying desperately to keep other people from stepping into the same hole. We rolled out in a messy convoy that looked more like a hunting trip than an organized operation. Pickup beds full of backpacks, coolers, and folding shovels. A couple of folks in hiking boots that still had the store shine on them. One woman wearing a bright yellow raincoat, her hood up even though the drizzle had stopped. Like she couldn't stand the feeling of open air above her head. Travis rode in the lead with Deputy Klein. I ended up in the second vehicle, squeezed into the back seat of a Subaru with two other volunteers. My assigned buddy was a man named Nate Hensley, mid-30s, wiry, with a beard head trimmed too carefully for someone who claimed he'd been camping all weekend. He smelled faintly like cedar soap. His vest had the name Nate written in block letters. He caught me looking at his hands. "Yeah," he said. "I'm the type who keeps band-aids in the glove box, I know." I wasn't judging, I told him. He snorted. But it didn't sound amused. Good. Because you'll want someone who notices little stuff out there. The road to North Ridge was a ribbon of cracked pavement cutting through wet pine and old oaks. Everything shining like it had been varnished. We passed the last farmhouse, then the last mailbox, then nothing but trees and occasional white posts marking the edges of culverts. My phone had 1 bar, then none. Nate noticed. "Signal dies around here," he said. "Always does? Always?" I asked. He shrugged. "The Ridge eats it." That didn't sound like something a person should say casually, but the Subaru hit a pothole and his attention shifted to bracing himself against the door. At the access point, the convoy stopped in a widening gravel lot with a wooden sign that read North Ridge Trailhead in carved, weathered letters. Underneath was a smaller placard, "Day use only. No overnight camping." Someone had stapled a missing poster to the post. Jenna Cross, 16, brown hair. Hazel eyes last seen wearing a gray hoodie and black leggings. The photo was one ID seen on social media. Except this one looked wrong. Not fake, not edited in the obvious sense, but the kind of wrong you notice in a familiar room after someone has moved a chair 2 inches. Her eyes in the photo weren't looking at the camera. They were angled upward. I leaned closer, and the paper fluttered in the breeze that didn't move the trees. Travis stood on the tailgate of his truck, with a laminated map board propped against his knee. "All right," he said, voice carrying. "We're running grid lines off the main trail. Spacing is 10 feet. If you can't see your partner's vest, you're too far. Keep your eyes on the ground and the brush line. People get hung up on looking out and miss what's right under their boots." Deputy Klein added, "If you find her phone, don't touch it. Mark it and call." Then Travis said, like he was reading from something he hated, "If you hear anything above you, branches cracking, something moving, don't go wandering off to play hero. You stay in line." A couple of volunteers exchanged glances. Somebody muttered, "Bears." Travis didn't answer. Nate and I ended up on the same line as a tall college kid named Ross, and an older woman named Mabel who carried a hiking pole like she'd been born with it. Everyone did the radio check. Call signs were simple first name and team. Ben, check. Ben copies. Nate, check. Copy. Ross, check. Yeah, got it. Mabel. A pause then, here. Her voice sounded like it came from farther away than 10 feet. We started moving. The first 20 minutes felt like what you'd expect. Damp earth. Slick leaves. The smell of mushrooms and rot. The little sting of cold air in your lungs. Every now and then somebody called out line, to keep spacing, or hold. When someone needed to step over a fallen log, I tried to match the rhythm of the others. Step. Scan. Step. It was hypnotic in a way that made me understand how people could wander off without realizing it. Your brain starts filling in the gaps, turning trees into the same trees, turning distance into the same distance. Then I saw the first lie, a boot print, crisp as if it had been pressed into clay, right on top of a patch of slick leaves that none of us had stepped on yet. It wasn't old. The edges were clean. The leaf veins had been stamped into the mud, and it was pointed the wrong way. It faced toward the trail, as if someone had walked out of the woods and toward safety. Nate crouched beside it, careful not to touch. He stared for a long moment, jaw working. "Could be overlap," Ross said from behind us. "Someone from last night, deputy, whatever." "No," Nate murmured. "This is fresh." He glanced up at me like he was checking whether I was the kind of person who would laugh. "Maybe Jenna," I suggested, and even saying it made my stomach tighten. Maybe she came back toward the trail, and Nate lifted a hand. Sheesh. He leaned closer to the print, his eyes tracking something I couldn't see. Then he pointed 2 inches ahead of the boot print. There was a second print, barely visible, but there, pressed into the mud at a slight angle, as if someone had stepped down hard. Then the boot print, then a third, and a fourth, leading in a straight line through the brush. "Okay," I said quietly. "So she walked that way." Nate's voice stayed low. "Yeah, but where did she come from?" I followed the line backward. It didn't lead anywhere. The prints began in the middle of a patch of leaves like the person had dropped into place from nowhere, and started walking. The hairs on my arms lifted beneath my jacket. Ross shifted behind me, impatience radiating off him. "Guys, we can't stop for every muddy footprint. People walk these trails all the time." "Not here," Mabel said suddenly. We all looked at her. She was standing perfectly still, hiking pole planted like a stake, her eyes fixed on the treetops. "What do you mean, not here?" Ross asked. Mabel didn't answer him. She turned her head slightly, like she was listening for something just out of reach. "No one comes up this side," she said finally. "Not without a reason." Travis' voice crackled over the radio. "Ridgeline status check." Nate lifted his radio. "We have tracks." There was a pause too long for normal radio delay. "What kind of tracks?" Travis asked. Nate hesitated. I watched his thumb hover over the transmit button like it was heavy. "Boot prints," he said finally. "Fresh leading east." Another pause, then Travis, careful. "Mark and move on. Do not follow off grid." Nate's eyes flicked to me. That was the first time I realized those weren't suggestions. "They were commands, copy," Nate said, voice tight. He pulled the pale blue tape from his pocket. My tape and tied a strip around the low branch, leaving it hanging like a ribbon. Ross stared. "Why blue?" Nate didn't look at him, because Travis gave it to us. We moved on. The forest thickened. The ground climbed. The light changed in a way I can't fully explain, like the sun was still rising, but the woods weren't letting it in. It stayed dim under the canopy, all soft gray and green. Shadows pooled between trunks. Somewhere to our left, a bird called. Not a normal chirp, but a single sharp note repeated again and again, like a metronome. Mabel's hiking pole tapped twice. "What?" I asked. She didn't answer. She tapped again. Nate leaned closer to me. "She uses that to keep rhythm," he whispered. "If she stops tapping, we stop walking." I opened my mouth to ask why, then shut it, because I realized I didn't actually want to hear the answer. The next weird thing came through the radio. At first it was just static, normal, crackly, like someone brushing their mic against fabric. Then a voice broke through, calm and distant. Ben Harlow, my name. It wasn't Travis. It wasn't Klein. It didn't sound like any of the volunteers. It sounded like a recording played through a cheap speaker. The edges of the words flattened. I froze so hard my boots sank slightly into the mud. Nate snapped his head toward my radio like it had bitten him. His hand shot out and turned my volume knob down. "What are you doing?" Ross whispered, alarmed now. Nate's face had gone pale. "Don't answer." "I didn't," I started. The voice came again, clearer. "Ben Harlow, come up. We can't see." Mabel's hiking. Pole stopped tapping. Every muscle in my body wanted to look around, to find the person messing with us, to shout back that it wasn't funny. Instead, I stared straight ahead at a patch of ferns and forced myself to breathe. Nate leaned so close I could smell the cedar soap on him. "Don't talk," he hissed. "If it repeats 3 times, it cut off." Static swallowed the channel. Then Travis' voice. "All units, radio check. I'm getting interference." Ross let out a shaky laugh. "Okay, that was messed up. Someone's screwing around." Nate didn't laugh. Mabel started tapping again, slow at first, then steady. We resumed walking. As we moved higher, the trees thinned just enough that you could see glimpses of sky through the branches, pale, washed out. Like a paper held up to light. I tried not to look, but the longer I avoided it, the more aware I became of the space above us, like something heavy was hanging there, just out of sight. Another volunteer line came into view through the brush-orange vests, moving like slow fireflies. Travis was with them, waving a hand low to keep them quiet. He approached our line and looked at the blue tape marker Nate had left behind. His eyes hardened. "Who marked that?" Nate raised his chin. "Me." Travis held Nate's gaze for a beat, then nodded once, like he'd confirmed something. Then he pointed to the ground near our feet. Another print. This one wasn't a boot. It was barefoot, toes splayed, pressed into mud too deep for its size. Child-sized, maybe. The toes were long and thin, and it faced straight toward the slope, away from the trail, as if whatever made it was walking deeper into the ridge. Ross swallowed audibly. That's not Jenna, right?" Travis didn't answer him either. He crouched, stared at the print, then looked up at the trees. And when he spoke again, his voice wasn't just serious, it was afraid. "Everyone stays on grid," he said. "Nobody breaks formation. If you feel the urge to look up, don't." He stood, keyed his radio, and said something I'm not sure he meant for volunteers to hear. "Deputy, we've got another one." Klein's voice came back, strained. "Copy mark and move. State team is 20 minutes out." Travis' eyes flicked to me for the first time since Wed left the trailhead. And in that quick glance, I understood something that turned my blood cold. This wasn't the first time he'd seen footprints. That didn't make sense. This was the first time someone like me had. We reached the clearing by accident. At least, that's what Travis told us later. That it wasn't on any map. That none of the teams were supposed to drift that far east. That the ridgeline had pulled our grid out of shape, the way a magnet distorts a compass. In the moment, it didn't feel like an accident at all. It felt like we'd been guided. The trees thinned until the trunks grew farther apart, their roots clawing at stone. The ground turned rocky and uneven, patches of pale granite, pushing through the soil like bone through skin. Ferns gave way to scrub brush, and the air changed cooler, sharper, with a faint metallic tang that reminded me of licking a battery when I was a kid, and didn't know better. Mabel stopped tapping. That was our first warning. Our second warning was the silence. The forest went dead quiet. So abruptly it felt like someone had turned off a sound machine. No birds, no insects, no distant wind, just our breathing and the soft crunch of boots on rock. Travis appeared ahead of us, stepping out from between two boulders like he'd been waiting. His orange vest looked too bright against the stone. "Hold," he said, low. Every line stopped. The whole search team, 20, maybe 30 of us, spread across the slope, became a set of frozen cutouts in the trees. Travis walked toward us and didn't look at the ground. He looked at our faces, as if he was counting them, making sure no one had dropped out without anyone noticing. He stopped when he reached our line. His gaze landed on Nate. "You hear anything?" Travis asked. Nate shook his head. "Not since earlier," Travis nodded once. "Good." Then he looked at me. "Ben, you still got that blue tape?" I held up the roll like a question. "Keep it handy," he said. "And listen to me. If you see something you can't explain, you don't say it out loud. Not right away." Ross, who'd been trying to act tough all morning, couldn't help himself. "Why?" "Because it's spooky." Travis' jaw flexed. "Because radios carry, and there are things in these woods that listen better than we do." Deputy Klein's voice crackled over the radio, cutting the tension. "Travis status." Travis keyed his mic. "We're at the rock clearing." A pause. Then Klein. "Copy, don't linger." Travis didn't reply. He clipped his radio back and motioned us forward with 2 fingers. The clearing opened up like a wound. It was a broad oval of exposed granite, slick in places like it had been polished by years of water runoff. The edges were fringed with stunted trees and low brush. And beyond that, the slope dropped away, giving a partial view down into the darker forest below. And right in the center, in a straight line across bare stone that had no dirt to hold anything, were footprints, not scuffs, not marks, footprints. Perfectly defined impressions, like the stone had softened just long enough to receive them, and then hardened again. I took a step closer without thinking, then stopped myself, remembering the paper on the pavilion pole. "Do not follow footprints that begin on bare rock." These didn't just begin on bare rock. They were on bare rock. Travis held a hand out, palm down, steadying us like he was calming a dog. "Nobody steps onto the stone," he said. "You keep to the dirt edge." Mabel's eyes never left the footprints. "Those aren't boots," she whispered. She was right. They were barefoot, adult-sized, long and narrow, toes pressed deep as if the person had stepped down hard from a height. And that was the part that made my stomach roll, because the first print, the very first one, sat alone. There was nothing behind it. No approach marks, no scuff, no handprints like someone had climbed up. Just one heel strike impression, angled slightly, as if a foot had come down from above and landed there. Then the next print, a stride away. Then the next, and the next. A normal walking pattern, a normal pace. A normal person taking normal steps, except the first step came out of nothing. Ross's voice was small now. "How? How is that possible?" Travis didn't answer. Nate crouched at the edge of the stone, careful to keep his boots in the soil. He leaned forward, eyes scanning the impressions like he was reading a book, written in a language he hated. "It's fresh," Nate murmured. "How can you tell?" I asked, and immediately regretted it. The question sounded stupid in the face of what we were seeing. Nate pointed to the edges of the print. "Derez," like it pressed down into something soft and pushed the sand outward. If it was old, wind and rain would have filled it. My mouth went dry. So someone stepped here recently. Travis' eyes flicked upward just a quick glance, and his pupils tightened as if the light had changed. "Mark it," he said. Nate pulled out the blue tape. Travis stopped him with a sharp motion. "Number not on the stone, on the trees. Blue only." Nate hesitated, then tied 2 strips to a low branch at the clearing's edge, making a little flag that fluttered without wind. "Why blue?" Ross demanded, voice cracking. "What's blue mean?" Travis finally looked at him. "Blue means you don't cross this line. Blue means you found something that doesn't want to be found." Ross stared at him like he'd just spoken in a different language. Then a radio popped. Not Travis. Not mine. Somewhere across the clearing, someone's handheld chirped, and a voice came through. Distorted. Jenna Cross. If you can hear this, answer. A few volunteers flinched. One woman raised her radio. Thumb hovering, Travis snapped. No, the woman froze, eyes wide. Travis' face had gone hard. Do not answer any voice that doesn't identify properly, he said. If it doesn't say call sign and team, you don't respond. But that was Klein, someone whispered. No, Nate said quietly, and the certainty in his tone made everyone go still. That wasn't him. Static washed over the channel, then silence. My heart hammered. It felt like the clearing itself was holding its breath. Travis turned toward the slope, scanning the brush line. We move, he said. Back to grid. Mabel's hiking pole tapped once sharp. Like punctuation, Travis, she said. Look. She was pointing, not at the footprints, but at the beginning, at the first print on the stone. For a second, I didn't understand what she meant. It was the same print we'd been staring at, the same heel strike from nowhere. Then I saw it, above the first footprint, about 8 feet up in open air, where there was nothing but sky framed by branches. There was another mark. Not a footprint, a faint smear, like a scuff in the light, a ripple in the air itself. The space looked wrong, like heat shimmer, but the air was cold enough that my breath fogged. It was as if something invisible had stepped down, brushing the air, and then left a footprint on stone. My skin crawled. Nate's voice dropped to a whisper. Don't look at it too long. Ross couldn't stop staring. Are we hallucinating? No, Travis said. His voice was flat, and that was worse than fear. This is real. He turned and pointed at me. Ben, you and Nate, pair up and fall back to the trail now. What about the clearing? I asked. What about Jenna? Travis' eyes flicked to the footprints again, then away. We've logged it, Ross snapped. We're supposed to find her. Travis stepped closer until he was in Ross's space. We are supposed to keep you alive, he said. And if Shez in there, he stopped himself, swallowed, then finished. If Shez in there, you're not getting her back by playing brave. Ross's mouth opened then closed. He looked suddenly young. Travis turned to Nate. You know what to do if it starts up again. Nate nodded once. I stared at Nate. Starts up again. Nate didn't look at me. Just walk, he said. We backed away from the clearing, keeping our boots in the dirt, refusing to step onto the stone. My eyes kept wanting to flick upward to that wrong patch of air. But every time I thought about doing it, I remembered Travis' words. Don't look up unless you have to. Wednesday barely made it 10 yards into the trees when Nate grabbed my elbow and stopped me. Listen, he murmured. At first I heard nothing. Then, faintly, from somewhere above the canopy, came a sound like footsteps on a wooden floor. Step, step, step. It wasn't coming from the ground. It was coming from the sky. My throat tightened. That's impossible. Nate's grip tightened. Yeah, he said, voice like a bruise. Welcome to the part they don't put in the safety briefing. The footsteps paused, and a voice, soft and pleading, drifted down through the branches. Ben, please, I can't get down. It was my name again. It wasn't a radio this time. It was in the air, like someone whispering from a balcony. My whole body tensed with the urge to answer, to shout back, to demand to know who was up there. Nate leaned close enough that his breath hit my ear. If you answer, he whispered, it knows you can hear it. My mouth tasted like metal. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep walking. Behind us, in the clearing, the first footprint on the stone deepened, just slightly. Like something invisible was shifting its weight. Taking another step down, we returned to the grid like people coming back to a conversation mid-sentence. Everyone tried to pretend the clearing hadn't changed anything, but it had. You could see it in the way volunteers kept their eyes locked to the ground now, in the way nobody cracked jokes, in the way even the loud ones spoke in whispers as if the trees had ears. Travis kept us moving. He didn't let anyone drift. He checked spacing every few minutes, calling line, like he was afraid the word itself might hold the forest together. Nate stayed on my left, too close for normal grid protocol, his shoulders tight. He wasn't scanning for Jenna anymore. He was scanning for exits. Has this happened before? I asked under my breath. He didn't answer immediately. His gaze flicked to the radios clipped to our vests. Then carefully, he said, "Not like this. Not with so many people." My stomach sank. "So it has happened." Nate's mouth tightened. "Ben, just focus on what's in front of you, please." The trouble was, what was in front of me didn't stay consistent. I don't mean the normal confusion of woods where every tree looks like every other tree. I mean the kind of wrong that makes you doubt your own memory of steps you took 10 seconds ago. We walked a shallow curve around a downed log, then somehow ended up back at the same log from the other side, like the forest had folded and relayed itself while we weren't looking. Ross noticed too. I saw him glance at his phone screen, where Head pulled up a compass app out of habit, even though there was no signal. "Hey," he said, voice strained. "My compass is spinning." Travis snapped. "Put it away." Ross stared at him. "What? Why?" "Because you don't need it," Travis said. "You need your eyes and your buddy." "That's not an answer," Ross shot back. Travis stepped toward him, face hard. "Yes, it is." Ross's cheeks flushed. But he shut up and shoved his phone back into his pocket. Mabel tapped her hiking pole twice. We stopped. She pointed at a patch of low brush near the base of a cedar tree. "There," she said. At first I saw nothing. Then I saw a strip of cloth snagged on a twig. Gray fleece. A hoodie sleeve. My heart jumped so hard it hurt. Nate crouched carefully, holding out an arm to keep me back. He didn't touch the cloth. He just leaned close enough to see. "It's fresh," he murmured, and there it was again. That word. Travis came over, eyes narrowing. "Mark it." Nate pulled out the blue tape. Travis shook his head. "Orange blue is 4. He stopped himself. His gaze flicked upward, quick as a flinch, and he swallowed. "Orange," he repeated, like he was correcting a mistake. Nate tied an orange strip around the cedar branch. Deputy Klein's voice came through the radio a moment later, as if he'd been listening the whole time. "Report." Travis keyed his mic. "Possible clothing match marked." Klein's pause was short, but I could hear something in it, relief mixed with dread. "Copy, hold position." "State team is 5 minutes out," Ross muttered. "About damn time." We waited. That should have been the moment things felt better. Reinforcements. Professionals. Dogs, equipment. People trained for exactly this. But while we stood there in the dim green light, listening to our own breathing, a realization hit me like cold water. The hoodie sleeve wasn't torn. It wasn't ripped or snagged, like someone had been dragged to brush. It was folded neatly over the twig, as if someone had placed it there on purpose. A breadcrumb. Something about that made my mouth go dry. Mabel's pole tapped once. A warning. "Don't touch it," she whispered. "I'm not." I whispered back. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the canopy, and her face had gone pale. "Not you," she said. A rustle came from behind the cedar. Ross turned first. "Hello, Jenna." Travis' hand shot out, grabbing Ross's vest and yanking him back so hard Ross stumbled. "What the?" Travis hissed. "No names." Ross's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" A voice drifted out of the brush. Soft, familiar. "Ross." Ross froze. The voice sounded like his girlfriend or his sister, or maybe just his brain reaching for the most effective hook it could imagine. Ross's mouth opened. Nate lunged, clamping a hand over Ross's mouth before he could answer. Ross struggled, eyes wild. "Shut up," Nate whispered fiercely. "Do you want it to know you're here?" Ross jerked his head, trying to break Nate's grip. Travis stepped between Ross and the brush, his posture protective, like he could block whatever was there with a human body. "Everybody back," Travis ordered. 2 steps. We moved as one, boots scraping leaves. The voice came again, closer. "Ross." "Where did you go?" Ross went still. Tears sprang to his eyes, and in that moment I understood the danger wasn't just claws and teeth. It was the way it could use you against yourself. A branch snapped above us. Not from a tree swaying. From weight, step, step. The sound of footsteps on wood again. Right above our heads, like someone walking on an invisible platform just out of sight. Ross's breath hitched. He twisted his head, trying to look up. Travis grabbed his chin and forced it down. Don't, he hissed. Ross's chest rose and fell like he was trying not to scream. Then something dropped. Not a body, not a branch, a small object. It landed in the leaf litter with a soft thud, like a tossed stone. I stared at it. A phone. Black case, cracked screen. It lay face up, and on the lock screen was a photo of Jenna Cross smiling with her arm around a friend. Ross whispered through Nate's hand, "That's her phone." My stomach twisted. A phone doesn't fall out of the sky. Travis keyed his radio. "We have her device." His voice stayed steady, but his eyes kept darting to the brush, to the tree line, to the space above us. Deputy Klein responded instantly. "Do not pick it up, mark it." "State team is inbound." Travis nodded. Then realized Klein couldn't see him. "Copy." Nate slowly removed his hand from Ross's mouth. Ross sucked in air like he'd been drowning. "We found it," Ross said hoarsely. "So she has to be close, right?" "That's good. That means a new voice came, sharp and loud this time. Not from the brush, from above." Ross flinched, like he'd been slapped. His eyes shot upward. It happened so fast I didn't process it as a sequence at first. Just pieces. Ross's chin lifting. His mouth opening in reflex. Yeah, the word barely left his lips before the air above him shimmered, and something like a shadow peeled downward. It wasn't a creature with claws. It wasn't a monster in the way people imagine monsters. It was absence-shaped like a person. A vertical seam opening in the air, like the sky itself had unzipped. Ross's body rose. Not lifted like by hands, more like he was being reeled in by something that had hooked his ribs. His boots left the ground, kicking once, twice, leaves scattering. He grabbed at his vest strap, his fingers scrabbling like he could hold onto himself. "Help!" he choked. Travis lunged, grabbing Ross's ankle, for a fraction of a second. Travis held him. I saw the muscles in Travis' forearm stand out, saw his face twist with effort. Then Travis screamed, not in fear, but in frustration. And his grip slipped like Ross's leg had turned to oil. Ross shot upward into the seam. The air closed, and Ross was gone. No blood. No scream fading into distance. Just empty air and a few leaves still spinning where it had been. I stood frozen, my mind refusing to accept what my eyes had just seen. Nate made a strangled sound in his throat. His hands shook, but he didn't look up. He stared hard at the ground like the dirt was the only trustworthy thing left. Travis staggered back, breathing hard, eyes glassy. Mabel whispered, "Don't say his name." Travis swallowed. His voice came out rough. "Everyone hold," he keyed his radio. His thumb hovered for a second, like it weighed 100 pounds. "Klein," Travis said carefully. "We just lost a volunteer." Static, then Klein, voice tight. "Say again." Travis didn't repeat the words. He just said, "We need the protocol." Silence lasted too long. Then Klein answered in a voice that didn't sound like a deputy talking to civilians. It sounded like someone who'd been told to read from a script. "All units," Klein said. "If you observe an aerial event, you do not pursue. You fall back to the trailhead immediately. You do not say the missing person's name. You do not say the volunteer's name. You mark the location and you retreat." My stomach lurched. Aerial event. That was their euphemism for someone being taken into the sky. Travis looked at us, really looked. "Back," he said. "Now." Nate grabbed my sleeve and pulled me away from the cedar. As we retreated through the trees, I kept my eyes pinned to the ground. But I couldn't stop thinking about the phone that had fallen from above. Jenna's phone. And if it could drop objects, then Jenna had to be somewhere up there, alive or not. We moved fast. Too fast for a careful search. Orange vests weaving between trunks. Radio silent. Nobody speaking names. Behind us, the cedar tree creaked. Not from wind, from weight. And as we fled, I felt it the urge to look up, overwhelming and electric, like my body wanted to betray me. Nate kept one hand on my shoulder, guiding me by touch alone. "Don't," he whispered. "Just don't." And I understood then. The missing didn't leave the woods. They just stopped being on the ground. We made it to the trailhead like survivors, stumbling back into civilization after a shipwreck. Except the trailhead wasn't civilization. It was just a gravel lot with a wooden sign. and a line of vehicles idling in the damp morning air. People were waiting there, volunteers who'd been assigned to Lowland, a couple of deputies, and 3 strangers in dark jackets, standing beside an unmarked SUV. They didn't look like state search and rescue. They didn't have dogs or rope bags or the kind of gear you'd expect. They looked like people who didn't want their names on paperwork. Travis pulled the Ridge team into a tight cluster and spoke low. "Nobody says anything about what you saw," he said. "Not to the press, not to your neighbor, not to your spouse. You tell them Ross got separated. You tell them we lost radio contact. You do not make this a story. Why?" I demanded, and my voice came out louder than I meant it to. Heads turned. Travis' eyes sharpened, because the second you make it a story, more people come looking. Deputy Klein stepped up, face drained of color, and put himself between Travis and the volunteers, like he was trying to keep a lid on boiling water. "We've got professionals taking over," Klein said, voice strained. "Everybody go home. We'll contact you if we need statements." The 3 strangers watched us without expression. One of them, a woman with short hair and a clipboard, glanced at the blue tape roll still in my hand. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, like she recognized it. Nate leaned close to me. "Don't talk to them," he murmured. "Not unless Travis tells you." That was the second time someone had told me not to talk, like speech itself was dangerous. I stared at Klein. "Ross," Klein cut me off fast. "We're handling it." My hands clenched. Handling what? The fact that he got pulled into the sky. The moment the words left my mouth, the air seemed to tighten. Travis' face went still. Nate's grip on my arm became iron, and the woman with the clipboard, one of the strangers, tilted her head as if she had just heard a keyword. Klein's eyes flashed. "Ben," he said, too calm. "Go home." The way he said it didn't sound like advice. It sounded like a warning. I should have listened. But something in me broke open. ID watched a kid's phone fall out of nowhere. ID watched a man vanish like he'd been erased. ID heard my name spoken from above the trees. I couldn't go home and pretend ID just gotten tired in the woods. "I'm not leaving," I said. "Not until someone tells me what's happening." Travis grabbed my vest and pulled me a step closer, so we were face to face, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "You want the truth?" he whispered. "Fine. The truth is this isn't a search the way you think it is." I stared at him, breath shallow. "This is triage," he said. "We get eyes on the ground. We mark what we can. We keep people from wandering into the wrong places, and we wait for them." His chin jerked toward the strangers. "They're not here to rescue anyone," I said. Travis' eyes didn't waver. "Number they're here to make sure it stays in the woods." My throat tightened. Jenna's still out there. Travis swallowed. It was the first time ID seen his composure crack. "Maybe, and Ross," I said. Travis' voice dropped further. "Maybe." Nate's face was pale, sweat beading at his hairline even though the air was cold. He wasn't arguing. That told me everything. I turned, scanning the ridgeline beyond the trailhead. The trees stood thick and calm like nothing had happened, but I could feel it now, like a pressure change. Somewhere up there the air was wrong. "Where is it?" I asked. Travis didn't answer. Nate did. Barely moving his lips. "The descent point," he murmured. I blinked. "What?" Nate glanced at the strangers, then back at me. "We call it that. It's where they step down, where the footprints start." My stomach rolled. "You knew." Nate's voice was bitter. "I suspected. I didn't know it would happen today." Klein stepped toward us again, voice sharper. "Last warning. Volunteers clear out." The strangers didn't move, they just watched. Travis made a decision then. I saw it in his eyes before he spoke. He said, loud enough to be heard, "Ben, Nate, with me." Klein started. Travis cut him off. "We're going to confirm the mark." The woman with the clipboard spoke for the first time, her voice flat. "You have 15 minutes. Travis didn't acknowledge her, but his shoulders tightened like he'd been given a leash. We moved. Not as a full team, just the 3 of us, slipping past the trailhead sign and back into the trees, moving fast and quiet like trespassers in our own county. The forest swallowed the sound of the lot behind us within 10 steps. The light dimmed. The smell of damp earth returned. My phone still showed no service. It felt like the ridge had cut us off from the rest of the world. Travis led without hesitation, but he didn't follow the main trail. He cut left, down a narrow game path where the brush was broken in a way that didn't look like deer. It looked like people trying not to leave a trail. "You've done this before," I said. Travis didn't deny it. "I've been asked," he said. "Asked by who?" My voice shook. He didn't answer. After 5 minutes of hard walking, we reached a line of tape tied between two trees. Not orange, not blue, white. It was thin and almost invisible against the bark. But it marked a boundary like a quiet threat. Nate stopped short. His breath hitched. "That's not ours," I whispered. Travis' eyes flicked to the tape, and I watched his jaw set. "No," he said. "That's theirs." My skin prickled. "So what happens if we cross it?" Travis' voice was rough. "Then we're not volunteers anymore." I didn't like what that implied. Travis stepped under the white tape without touching it. Nate followed. I hesitated, then ducked through last, feeling like I was stepping into a different pressure system. The air changed immediately. Not colder or warmer, just heavier, like it resisted my lungs. We moved another 100 yards, and the trees began to look wrong. Not in an obvious supernatural way, more like the forest had been edited poorly. Two trunks that should have been separate seemed to share the same root. Branches overlapped in a way that didn't match their angles. Shadows didn't line up with the light. My stomach churned. "This is where it is," I said. Travis nodded once, eyes fixed ahead. We crested a small rise and saw the clearing again, granite exposed like a pale scar. But we didn't step into the clearing. Travis led us along the edge, toward a spot where the stone met dirt in a sharp seam. "There," Travis said. "I didn't see anything at first." Then Nate pointed. The air above the seam shimmered faintly, like heat haze, except the temperature hadn't changed. My breath still fogged. The shimmer wasn't from warmth, it was from distortion. Like looking through glass that had been bent. I stared, and my eyes tried to slide away, like my brain couldn't keep the image stable. Nate swallowed hard. "That's the descent point." Travis pulled the blue tape from Nate's pocket, my roll, passed back without me noticing, and held it like it was a sacred object. "Why blue?" I whispered. Travis' voice was quiet, because blue doesn't show up well at night. It's for people who know what they're looking for. Orange is for civilians. Blue is for the ones who come after. My throat tightened. "The professionals." Travis nodded. The shimmer pulsed. Above us high, beyond the branches came that sound again. Footsteps on wood, step, 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 and then a voice, raw and close, dropped through the air like a stone. "Help me." Not my name this time. A girl's voice, Jenna's voice. If my memory of her from the grocery store meant anything. I felt my whole body surge forward, instinct screaming at me to run toward the sound. To catch her, to do something. Travis' hand shot out and grabbed my chest, holding me back hard enough that I stumbled. "Ben," he hissed. "Number." "She's right there." I choked. "We can." Nate grabbed my shoulder, nails biting through fabric. "That's what it does," he whispered, voice shaking. "It gives you a voice you can't ignore." The shimmer deepened, like the air was bending inward, and for a fraction of a second I saw it. Not a creature, not a face, a space. A vertical depth that didn't belong in the world, like the sky had an opening into a hallway that ran upward forever. And in that depth, something moved, shape shifting like people underwater. Limbs slow, drifting. My stomach flipped. I tasted bile. Jenna's voice came again, pleading, "Please, I'm cold." I took a step before I meant to. Travis shoved me back. "Look at me," he snapped. I did, trembling. His eyes were wet, and that scared me more than his anger. "We don't pull them out," he said. "We can't. We mark it, that's all we can do." "Then what's the point?" I demanded, voice breaking. "What are we even doing out here?" Travis' voice dropped to something like a prayer. "We're keeping it from spreading." The footsteps above us stopped. The shimmer in the air tightened like a held breath, and from directly overhead, a new voice spoke, calm and familiar. "Ben." My blood turned to ice. It wasn't the radio. It wasn't a distant echo. It was right above me, like someone leaning over a balcony. Nate's face went ashen. He whispered, "Don't." Travis' grip on the tape roll tightened until his knuckles whitened. The voice spoke again, gentle. "Ben Harlow, look up." Every nerve in my body screamed to obey. And in that instant, I understood why Travis didn't want this to be a story. Because the woods didn't need more victims, it needed more listeners. While we marked with tape, I didn't look up. I can't pretend it was some heroic act of willpower. It was panic and muscle memory, and the cold knowledge of what happened to Ross when he answered. I stared at Travis' boots instead, mud-caked, planted like anchors, because the ground was the only thing in that clearing I still trusted. The voice above me waited, patient as gravity. "Ben." It said again, softer, like it was trying to coax an animal out of hiding. "We can see you." Travis' hand moved, slow and deliberate, until it rested on the front of my vest, right over my sternum, not pushing. Just there, a reminder, you are still here. Nate's fingers were tight on my shoulder, trembling. Mabel's rule flashed in my head without my permission. If you hear your name called from outside your group, do not answer. Only this wasn't outside the group. It was above it. The shimmer at the descent point pulsed. Jenna's voice, if it was Jenna, came again, closer and more desperate. "Please, I'm right here." My throat burned with the urge to shout back, to say her name, to promise help. I forced my tongue to the roof of my mouth until it hurt. Travis pulled the blue tape free, tore off a strip, and tied it around a low branch at the exact edge of the shimmer. He didn't touch the wrong air. He didn't step on the stone. He moved like a man defusing a bomb. Then he tore off another strip and tied it higher. 2 markers at different heights, like coordinates you could find even in low light. The voice above us made a sound, almost a laugh, almost a sigh. "Good," it said. "Now come closer." Travis ignored it. He took out a black marker and wrote something on the blue tape in block letters. "Do not cross." Underneath it, smaller, "Look down." Nate swallowed. His lips barely moved. "That's not standard." Travis didn't look at him. "It is now." The shimmer tightened again, and the air felt suddenly thick enough to chew. Then, from directly overhead, came the sound of something stepping down. Step. The first footprint in the clearing deepened, just slightly. As if an invisible heel had pressed harder into stone. My stomach lurched. A shape moved in the shimmer, not fully visible, just a distortion with intent. The way heat haze looks when you know something is walking behind it. Jenna's voice became a sob. "Ben, please." The way she said my name hurt. It hit every protective instinct I had. I took 1/2 step forward before I even realized my body had moved. Travis' hand slammed against my chest, stopping me hard. "No," he said, voice like steel. The voice above us changed. The gentleness drained out of it like a faucet turning off. "Ben Harlow," it said, and this time it sounded like Deputy Klein, exactly like him, right down to the tired rasp. "This is Klein. Look up." My breath caught. My brain tried to reorganize itself around the idea that Klein was somehow above us, calling down, needing help. Nate whispered, "It's lying." Travis didn't speak, but his posture shifted, bracing. Klein's voice came again, sharper, angry now. "Ben," I said, "look up. That's an order." It was so perfect, so familiar, that for a moment I almost believed it. And that was the thing that terrified me most. Not the shimmer, not the footprints. The accuracy, how well it knew what buttons to push. Travis clipped his radio on and keyed it without raising it to his mouth. He kept his eyes down as he spoke, voice low. "Klein," he said, "if you're real, give me the code word." Then Klein's real voice, faint through the radio, strained and human. "Travis, get out of there now." Travis' jaw clenched. He didn't answer. He just said, "Copy." Above us, the imitation Klein voice hissed, the sound wrong now stretched. "You don't get to check." The shimmer bulged outward like a lung filling with air, and something dropped. Not like Ross. Not a clean upward pull. This time it was a fall. A body hit the edge of the clearing with a wet thud that made my skin crawl, rolling onto the dirt where the leaves clung to it. For a heartbeat, my mind refused to name what I was seeing. Then my stomach turned to ice. It was Ross, or what was left of him. Not torn apart, not gory in the obvious way, just wrong, like head been compressed and unfolded by something that didn't care about joints. His orange vest was twisted around his torso. His eyes were open, staring through us at nothing. Nate made a broken sound and took a step toward him. Travis grabbed Nate's arm hard. "No," he snapped. "Don't touch." But Nate's voice cracked. "We can't." Travis' eyes were wild. "That's bait." Ross's mouth moved. A whisper scraped out so faint I barely heard it. "Look up." Nate froze. The words hit me like a punch. Ross wasn't pleading. He wasn't asking for help. He was repeating a command. A lure. Travis dragged Nate backward, away from the body. The shimmer pulsed, and Ross's eyes rolled upward toward the canopy, as if something above him had a string in his skull. "Ben," Ross's voice said, and it wasn't Ross anymore. "Ben, come closer." My skin prickled. My heart hammered so hard, it felt like it could bruise my ribs from the inside. Travis tore off another strip of tape and threw it not at Ross, but at the dirt line near him, marking a rough boundary without stepping closer. Then he backed away, pulling us with him. "Move," he hissed. Now, we retreated the way we'd come, fast and silent, eyes down, lungs burning. Behind us, something shifted in the clearing with a sound like fabric sliding over stone. I didn't look. I couldn't. We ducked under the white tape line, and the air pressure eased instantly, like we'd stepped out of a storm front. My knees almost buckled from relief. At the trailhead, the unmarked SUV was still there, idling. The strangers stood in the same place, watching the tree line like they expected us to emerge or not emerge. Deputy Klein met us halfway, his face gray. Travis didn't wait for questions. He held up his hands, palms out, and said, "We marked it." The woman with the clipboard stepped forward. Her eyes flicked over us like she was inventorying damage. "Blue?" she asked. Travis nodded once. She made a note, then said, "Good." That word landed wrong in my chest. Good meant containment. Good meant it hadn't moved. Good meant it was still someone else's problem. What about Jenna? I demanded, voice shaking. What about Ross? Klein's eyes flicked to the strangers, then back to me. His voice was quiet, warning again. "Ben, go home." I looked at him, really looked, and saw something in his expression I hadn't noticed before. Not disbelief, not confusion. Resignation, like a man who'd already attended too many funerals, where there wasn't a body to bury. Travis put a hand on my shoulder. His voice was rough but steady. "You did what you could," he said. I almost laughed. It would have been ugly. I didn't do anything. Travis' grip tightened. "You didn't answer. That was it. That was the bar. Not bravery, not rescue, not heroism. Just... Don't answer." The strangers started moving. Two of them pulled on gloves. One opened the SUV's back hatch and lifted out a hard case like a piece of equipment you'd use for hazardous materials. Klein stepped in front of me, blocking my view. "You need to leave," he said firmly, "right now." I wanted to argue. I wanted to demand explanations. But behind Klein, beyond the tree line, I heard it. Step, step. Footsteps on wood, faint and slow, like someone pacing overhead, waiting. Listening, I left. I drove home with both hands locked on the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. Every time my eyes drifted upward toward the sky, my throat tightened, and I forced them back down to the road. I didn't tell anyone the truth. Not my coworkers. Not my neighbors. Not the guy at the gas station who asked why there were so many trucks headed toward North Ridge. I told them we searched all day and didn't find her. Which was true, in the narrowest sense. The next morning, there was a new missing poster at the grocery store. Jenna Cross, 16, and beneath it, another face. Ross Alder, 22, 2 photos, 2 sets of eyes, both of them, now, angled slightly upward. A week later, Travis showed up at my door just after dark. He didn't come inside. He stood on my porch like he didn't want to bring whatever had been carrying through my threshold. He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a strip of pale blue tape on it. In black marker were 4 words, "Look down." Not up, That's for you, Travis said, in case it tries again. My mouth went dry. Tries what again? Travis' eyes flicked to the sky above my roofline. Just for a second, then back to me. Calling, he said. Then he left. I still don't go to North Ridge. I don't hike alone anymore. And when I hear my name in the wrong place through a bad radio connection, in the whisper of wind under a bridge, in the static between songs I don't answer, sometimes when I'm driving home late and the road is empty and the sky is black and endless, I swear I can see a line of footprints up there pressed into nothing, walking across the darkness, like someone took a stroll on a glass ceiling, and I wonder how many missing people are still up there, held in that vertical hallway of wrong air, waiting for someone to look up and say the one word that opens the seam. If you made it this far, subscribe and stick around, there are more stories like this coming. And I promise they don't get easier. Hit like if you want another search team case, and tell me in the comments, do you think the thing above the ridge was hunting people, or collecting them for something worse?